everybody? Welcome back to the Check Swing Podcast with myself and, of course, the star of the show, the genius behind the whole thing, the brains of the operation, besides me, my man, Coach Santa. He is the star of the show. Y'all already know that, tell you that every week. Appreciate y'all coming back and being with us. We are continuing our series on conversations with coaches, talking about baseball, talking about life, talking about approaches, talking about a whole lot of things. And let me be the first to say on this show, Eagles are going to the Super Bowl. Hey, I love it. I love it. But like I like to start every show, I like to ask my people how they been. So Miguel, how have you been, man?
Man, there's no greater feeling than being able to go through an entire season. We did it with the Phillies, with our predictions, and I never felt so glad to be so wrong in my life. My Phillies, the Eagles, both teams, I had a hard time believing they were playoff contenders, and they both proved me wrong, going all the way to their respective championships. City of Champions.
City of Champions. What they went 14 and 3, right?
No. 15 and
14 and 3. They lost
14
to
and 3. Yes, yes, yes. I apologize. Yes.
lost to the Commanders, which I know one of our guests are happy to hear that. Lost to the Commanders, lost to the Saints, lost to the Cowboys.
The Commodores.
Them too. Um, but I will tell you this, and I know you're not in the area anymore, and we have some guests that are waiting to join the discussion. But today on the radio up here on a specific station, um, it was Anthony Gargano. They played a clip.
Because
They played a clip from something he said back in June. I think when whatever the schedules first come out,
Mhm.
whatever that is. He actually went through and predicted them to be 14 and 3 back then. I was shocked. I because I listened to him all the time, and I remember listening to that show, and I was probably like, whatever.
and he's the ultimate homer too.
And he's the ultimate homer. I think he had him losing to I think the Cowboys once. It didn't. He didn't predict all the games the same, but he did get like I think he had us losing to Washington, the Cowboy. I forgot what the other one was.
Any division game is always going to be a split or close. It's very hard to be 2-0. I don't care what which team is on top. It's all division games are always the toughest.
So I was rude, and I just kind of cut you off, and you telling me how you been. So I'm gonna let you finish. Let you have some time to finish that. How you been?
Oh, I'm used to that. No, uh no, I'm good. I'm well excited for the Eagles. And for the record, if we should win, and I don't care what any Cowboys fan says, officially on record, we will be tied with the Dallas Cowboys with 5 world championships. I don't care what the Cowboys say that the NFL didn't exist before the Super Bowl. That's just what losers say when they have not won a playoff game in 27 years. I just want to put my stamp on it to all your Cowboys fans, all you Cowboys fans out there, cockroaches.
Well, there you have it. Look, last week we had Coach Mitchell from the Mitchell Marlins on with us discussing baseball and some things. And was it last year or maybe the year before? We started off with a lot of coaches: Coach Chase, Coach Lenny, Coach Afia, Coach Monique. We've had so many coaches on, and we're continuing. I'm sorry, my eyes are like so itchy right now. I'm sorry. We're continuing our series on conversations with coaches. And Miguel, why don't you introduce our guest?
So we're gonna have special guest from Rawlings Prospects of Maryland, which I have the privilege of being a coach along with these two gentlemen. We have Beau Brown and Bob Lamb. Beau Brown has been a staple in the local baseball community for several years now. He's previously coached the Kent Island 10U and has been with the Rawlings A's for the past 3 or 4 years. He's also led the 2018-19-13 U team to a very strong season, earning high accolades from Perfect Game top 50 teams. And to his immediate right, that lovely smile that you're looking at is Coach Bob Lamb, who has over 30 years of coaching experience, including time coaching in college and in high school. He served on the high school staff at Annapolis and South River and at the Essex Community College. In addition, he has coached at various youth programs around the state of Maryland, and is was the head coach for Syra. Forgive me if I mispronounced that. Fortune, who won the 2018 CBA championship. So, ladies and gentlemen, Coach Beau Brown and Coach Bob Lamb.
Thanks for having us.
Gentlemen, thank you for being with us.
You bet.
You guys have quite a bio there that Miguel just read. So I'm going to start with this question right here because this question could probably change based on who you're thinking about, right? But the question is, how would your players describe you, coaches?
You go first.
I knew you were going to pass it off there.
Well, as that bio says, I'm pretty ancient. I've been around a long time. So I'm pretty laid back. And that's exactly what the young fellas will say. And like one of my rules is that you don't cuss. There's no reason to get angry. You just keep trying to execute. So I'm the laid back one.
I still feel like I'm fairly young, so I try to bring positive energy, high energy. My kids seem to like me because I talk to them on the same level. You know, I care about them. I care about them more what goes off the field than what's on the field. I do grade checks. I do, I talk to them about their day. How's school going? I care more about what they're going to be when they're graduated high school, in college, when they're adults. I think I've been around now that my first batch of kids that I really coached are graduating high school and are getting ready or have just started college. And, so those are the things that I care about is what they do off the field more so than on the field.
Well, guys, I need to interject because you need to cut me off sometimes if I talk too much. He's talking about his first batch of kids that are going through high school. Well, I also am assistant coach at DeMatha High School in Washington. And just the other day at practice, I was staring at a kid. I'm not going to say his name, but when I was looking at him, he reminds me of his father, who I coached back in 1991. So that's when it really gets to be fun, when you're coaching kids that are the sons of the kids that you coached before.
I was still in elementary school in 91.
Correct.
So was I. So who was better, the son now or his father?
His father, but I'm not going to let that get out to him.
See, that's what I love about Coach Bob, because he'll be honest with you. But I think the players respect that honesty because they know when they're being sold a bill of goods. So
you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys were describing yourselves how the kids would probably describe you, and I was like, man, I'm kind of like a mix of the both of those. I'm pretty laid back, but I also ask about how they've been, how things are going. But I would have to ask Miguel. I'm not a high energy guy though.
Not at all. Not at all.
Not much of a high energy guy,
Because I remember, I think there was one time where I said, all right, I'm going to handle the bench a little more and I want you to go talk to the pitchers. And I remember you went out to the mound 3 times, and after each visit, I think it was 2 doubles and a home run. I was like, all right, we're done with this. I'll go back out to the mound. You stay on the bench.
Yeah. You're right.
But I think what I learned from you, because it's funny, because I was Coach Justin's assistant for 6 years?
I don't know how
It
many
was
years.
since 14. Yes, it was about 6 years. So I kind of get my laid backness from you because I think when I first started coaching, I was like, "Oh, you gotta do this, launch angle, lift, power, through, all this stuff," and it was like, "Wow, they're not responding." And then I kind of took the approach of Justin, where you kind of come up and it's hard because when you have like 20, 30 guys and you're trying to kind of meet their needs, but they all are individuals at the same time. It's very challenging to get them all on the same page. And I saw what when I was helping out with you guys last year and seeing you know the way Bob and Beau kind of engaged and handling certain players more than others, and just the way to see you guys kind of gelled together. I commend you guys because I'm like, okay, that still works to be able to be personable, and you don't have to be, teaching like a robot, teaching other robots, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But yeah, Justin has no energy.
I'm not a bring the energy guy, but I do expect energy. It's kind of
I,
crazy.
I will say this: the only time that I've ever seen Coach Justin get excited is with umpires. That's the only time I ever see you like throw something or like start cursing under your breath, or that's the only time I really see I've seen you get like kind of worked up.
Justin,
I'm
I feel you.
go there. I'm not going to go there. I think Coach Beau wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel you. I was an assigner for our umpire organization around here for 18 years. So I've worked summer college, high school state championships. I've umpired, championship games at Cooperstown Dreams Park. I run the gamut of umpiring, and that's where I get a lot of my experience from, is just seeing what coaches teach and not teach and how kids interact on the field. And, that's where I get a lot of my stuff from, is just what I learned watching and umpiring games and taking it all in. So, and try not to let parents yell at umpires or coaches yell at umpires.
Yeah, he told me I had to be nice.
Be nice to them because there's not very many of them left.
That's true.
Yeah, it's crazy how we have an umpire shortage, an official shortage. We got shortage everywhere.
Right.
What happened to them all? Like, I don't understand. We didn't have a shortage prior to the pandemic, but all of a sudden, I guess nobody wants to be an official anymore. It's kind of
It's funny you bring that up. I think our second tournament, when I was coaching the 23s last year, we were down in Virginia. I can't remember what part of Virginia, and the umpire that was there, we were upset because the first game we had two umpires, but the rest of the weekend we only had one. So I was talking to one of the umpires, and he actually was the head of the Virginia section of umpires for college and for high school. And he said the issue was the pay was too low because at a high school game or at a high school game, an umpire could get, I think, anywhere between like $80 or $90 a game, or they can go to NCAA Division II, Division III and get paid $400 a game. So he said college isn't hurting for umpires. And he also was saying too that a lot of the young guys that come in, they don't want to put in the work. So some umpires would do like 3, 4, sometimes 5 games in one day, and they're like, one and I'm done. Yep. So they're not getting the same work ethic as previous umpires. And I think at that time this was last year in June. Right. No, it was in May, and he said that they normally would have like 220 umpires in his division, and they were down to 140.
Yep. And a lot of it too is that you get these new guys in, and it takes years to learn a craft like that. Like you just can't, like anybody can't get behind the plate and call balls and strikes effectively, or call bang bang plays at first base effectively, or know how to interpret the rules. It takes time. It really does. And I love umpiring, and there's days I miss it. I miss the umpiring aspect of it, but it definitely, you can't have a first year guy, just going through training and then expect him to go and do a varsity baseball game. It's not good for anybody. It's not good for the kids. It's not good for the parents, and it's assuredly not good for the umpires themselves. So, and that's one of the biggest things, like you said, Miguel. Like the umpires, are doing college stuff because the college guys are grabbing the high school varsity guys and pulling them up and saying you can come do this with us, and it's really hurting the youth baseball and the high school baseball for sure.
Yeah,
but he's talking nicely about umpires. Now, I got an issue about umpires. Miguel, if you remember last year, we took a 14U team to Omaha, Nebraska.
Right.
And we ended up, which we didn't think, we had a good team. We didn't think we were going to be very successful, maybe successful. And we ended up being the number 1 seed for the playoff round. So our first game,
it's a highlight of our career.
We had to play a Nebraska team.
Mm.
So now you know what happens when we're out of town and we're playing a Nebraska team, right?
Yeah. Umpires
got bad real quick on our side.
We also didn't hit that day.
We got homered.
we didn't hit very well that day either. That's not.
Well, they had a good pitcher.
Yeah.
And you know it's funny because when we were at me and Coach Justin, we were at MSI. I actually would tell them I didn't like playing tournaments at our home field because it always seemed like if there was one call that was even borderline that went in our direction, just to feel the parents like, oh well, we're here, you know what I mean? And it's like it would happen all the time, and I'm like, you know what? I'd rather not play a home tournament. I'd rather play, someplace else for that reason. But
yeah, that dream at MSI. A couple years ago too, we were playing a team at South Jersey Young Guns, and
we got homered bad.
Again, we didn't hit.
And you just sit there after a moment or two, you see the plays and how it goes against you. And I said, well, we're just going to sit here and admire this game because nothing we do is going to work.
Oh, Coach Bob and umpiring. How do we go down this?
Yeah.
It's a vicious cycle.
Well, you guys are talking about, the playing at MSI and playing in different places, and you've coached a number of different age groups. Just wondering, what do you prefer? Do you have a preference? Do you like coaching the younger guys? You like coaching the older guys? What do you guys prefer?
You want me to answer that, or Miguel can answer that? He knows me, the older kids. I don't like coaching anything that's on a small field. So you got to be 13 and up.
So, and I will say, there's ways to like both styles, the younger guys versus the older guys. If you're asking me, I don't think I could ever go back and coach 8, 9, and 10-year-olds. But if I'm working with them in a group setting, yeah, I can work my way around it. I like the high school guys. I like, the 14U was fun because you're teaching real baseball at that point. The bats are where the bats are equal for everybody. The field is the same size. The kids are growing into their bodies. So coaching 14, 15, 16-year-olds obviously has its upside versus coaching a 12-year-old team. We were in a tournament when we were coaching 13U together our first year, and we went up to Boston and we're playing in this tournament. And, I think we were the 3 seed or something after pool play, and we run up to this team and they were legitimately using the same bat over and over and over again. Like the bat never left the dirt circle. And it's like we're watching 13 youths hit 350-foot bombs because the bat's juiced. Not necessarily juiced, but it's just got it's that green and white zen that all the kids swing, and it's just like you're just watching balls going, wait, that's not supposed to happen. Like you're not supposed to be able to do that. So,
Miguel, what about you?
So my first team that I coached was a 9U team at MSI. And I remember second week of practice, this kid was having a hard time. Ground balls were just going right through him all day. And he would throw his glove down. So I pulled him aside when I separated the team. I was like, so what's going on, man? What's wrong? He's like, I hate my father, I hate baseball, and I hate all of you. And I remember looking at him. I think he was surprised by my response. I was like, all right, well, now that you got that out, what's the real problem? So the only issue I couldn't go back today and coach a 9U. I honestly I couldn't, because it's just a lot more talking, trying to meet them where they're at language wise. But I do appreciate me and Justin's former GM at MSI, where he was really just like, listen, just teach them to have energy, see the ball, hit the ball, and be a great teammate. I was like, you know what? I can do that. I can teach that to the kids. I don't miss taking a picture out while he was crying on the mound. I don't miss that.
We did it in high school too, Miguel.
Yeah, we had that at 13.
Oh God. Oh yeah, we're coaching 15 years, so they'll sniffle, but they won't cry now. But yeah, I think that's the only thing I won't miss. I think the parents were a lot more challenging, in my opinion, too, at the younger ages, because I think a lot of the parents were living vicariously through their children. Because the longest emails I got were from my 9 and 11U teams. Oh, my kid, he's a switch hitter, and he's looking at Georgia Tech. I'm like, he doesn't even know where Georgia is on a map, and you got him going to that state and studying. You know what I mean? And I think I was kind of nervous about that coming down here, because I think baseball in the DMV is so much more competitive than PA, because of all of the facilities between like Rawlings, API, and all the organizations in DC. I think baseball, and Justin, you can kind of chime in the DC Jersey area. I think baseball's kind of dying a little bit. To some of the other sports like lacrosse and basketball and stuff.
Philly, Jersey area?
Huh?
Meaning the Philly, Jersey area?
Yeah, same thing. So, but I was a little bit worried about that coming down to this area. And the two teams that I've already coached, the parents have been phenomenal. I mean, you always have the one, or three, and but as long as you kind of talk to them and meet them where they're at, they seem to be somewhat okay. So, but yeah, I definitely prefer high school. I can't take pictures out of off the mound for crying. Can't do it.
I had the fortune last fall, not this past fall, but the fall before, is at Rawlings. We had a coach that was going to coach our 10U team. 3 days before the first practice in the fall, I was like, I can't do this. And we're sitting there going, I'm like, all right, I'll coach him in the fall. No problem. Get all the parents together. Like, we're going to have fun. Like, we're going to teach them how to play baseball. We're going to have fun, but don't expect to win every game. Like, we're completely just trying to get our baseball skills up. And it's like, I got parents blowing up my phone. Like, what are we doing? Like, they're 10 years old. Let's just let them have fun and play baseball. I mean, even the high school kids too. The high school parents today are they're taking things so seriously. Yeah. It's like every kid has to be recruited as a freshman. That's not how it works. Like you have to put the time in, and you have to get exposure and do things. But it's just I shake my head sometimes at the stories that I hear.
Yep. You guys want to hear the story when you asked about high school and younger kids? If you want to hear my story, I don't know how much time we got, but it's a good story.
You got the clock.
Okay. I played baseball at Annapolis High School, and then I went to Anne Arundel Community College in Salisbury, and then I got hurt. My shoulder blew out. And back in the 70s, you don't go get repaired. So my career was over. Well, I met my old high school coach from Annapolis back in 1988 at a football game, and he asked me if I wanted to come coach. I had never thought about it. I didn't go to school to be a coach, take phys ed or anything like that. So I said, sure. And hopefully I had a little bit to do with it. In 88, we won the state championship. So there I'm coaching high school, and then I got to coaching summer ball at high school level. Very high level of baseball. And then I got offered a job at Essex. Now at Essex, I committed. We had fall ball and spring ball, but during the winter, we had workouts at 11 o'clock at night because that's the only time you could get the gym there. So I had just had a son in 1992, right in between. And one night I got home from practice and my wife threw my son right at me and said, you know, this is your son too. You got to take care of him. And the next day I went and told the coach that I couldn't coach after this year. So I had to become a family man. But I looked at my wife and I said, when my son reaches 6, I'm going to go back coaching again. So now that's how my circle went. I went from older down to young, and I'm doing T-ball. Now, right here.
Oh, man. I can't imagine.
So that's how I got back and started again. And the thing that got me that really, really made me think if I wanted to coach was it was co-ed because young girls could play on T-ball too. So you had to stand in the box and you had to help teach them how to swing and how to hit the ball. And I'm getting all excited in the instruction. And then the one little girl looks at me and says, Coach Bob, look at my nails. I just had them done. And I called my wife right then and there and I said, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And then as it went up, you know, it's like herding cats. So, but like Coach Beau was right, you got to be very temperamental. You got to be special to do younger kids because it just takes so much.
Does.
That story.
The hardest thing with the little kids is not saying that word.
Oh,
Man, some of these little kids, they curse like truckers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes, they do.
and then what do you do about that?
Don't say that. on our summer team, and I coach high school baseball at Southern as well, Southern High School. In our dugout, if you say the F word, it better be. I make them say gerbil, just so that way it's not the F word. I hate the F word. I've always hated the F word, and I say it, you know. But I'm 41 years old, and I feel like I can say it, but. Having a 15-year-old strike out and then come back in the dugout dropping F-bombs, it really bothers me. And it bothered me, too, when I umpired. I mean, I've kids that have been drafted that I restricted to the bench because they dropped the F-bomb at home plate. Like, Stop it. Knock it off. So.
Don't mess with umpire. Don't mess with him as umpire.
He'll run you.
Because I've heard people drop F-bombs. I'm not going to name any names. I've heard people drop an F-bomb or two on the field.
Was I walking away?
Probably.
All right, well, it doesn't count. It wasn't directed towards anybody on the field.
But probably it was the kid that was getting drafted that he restricted to the bench.
Oh yeah, probably.
I ejected a coach one of the last years I really umpired. I ejected a high school coach, and he argued. I tried to let him go. I tried to let him walk away, and finally I just ran him. And he waited for me at the gate when the game was over. And he was, make sure you put in your report that I didn't say a cuss word. Okay. Make sure you tell him I didn't cuss at you. Okay, no problem.
Shout out to Coach Mitchell. He said so you guys can see. I'll put it up again. Shout out to Rawlings, Rawlings A's great program, great coaches, great parents. He was on the show with us last week, so shout out to him. Check out that show on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/New Twist Radio, and check out all the live streams that we did there. I got a question for you as an umpire, and I'm going to put this out there because my dad was an umpire, and he had I don't know if I would call it a technique for this, but he had a way of tossing a coach out. But I'll just say it. If a coach is arguing with him as an umpire, he would tell the coach not another word out of you. Not another word out of you, coach. You understand me? And And if they said, yeah, I got, like, if they replied, he would toss them. Did you have anything like that to where you would, if you wanted to get somebody out of a game, you had a way of getting them out of a game?
No, I did not enjoy ejecting people. It was not on the top of my list. I tried to umpire where I got along with everybody. Like, if I walked on the field, I wanted to have just as much fun as the kids were having. So for me to, like, that's one of the tall tale signs of don't say another word or you're gone. Okay, what if I say okay? You're gonna throw me for saying okay? Like,
Yeah,
I mean, that, again, that's, that's the old school mentality. I think I kind of prided myself a little bit on not letting the situation escalate to that point. I try to be friendly with everybody, and I've umpired games where Dante Bichette was the head coach. Eric Milton, who coaches at Severna Park, pitched at Maryland, pitched for the Twins. I've had great interactions with them, and they were, this past spring, we're Southern's playing Severna Park, and Eric Milton's coaching third base, and he's a high-profile baseball guy, and he's like, I can see the catcher's sign. And like every other pitch is like, I can see the catcher's sign. Okay, great. But as far as like umpiring go, no, I didn't run people like, don't say another word. Don't say another word or you're gone. That just never helps the situation. Never helps, because they're always going to say another word.
You bet.
in that situation, I'm always waiting for an umpire to say that to me so I can know not anything else. And they just can't wait for me to say something. Like, I've always wanted that to happen to me.
I mean, as a coach nowadays, I've, from being an experienced umpire, I've felt like I know how far I can go basically before I get to, and I've gotten to that point where I was like, man, I probably should have been ejected. But, again, don't say bad words to them. Don't say you are terrible, or, don't call them out for it, and just have a general conversation. You can go out to him. I was telling Bob at dinner tonight, I said, a lot of times now when I go out to question an umpire on a call, it's just like, hey, I just want you to think that, I just want my parents and my players to think that I'm defending you. I'm not here to argue. I just want them to notice that I'm out here talking to you about the call. Tell me what you saw, and we'll go on about our way.
So you don't do the Billy Martin and I need you to throw me out so these guys can get started?
You know what? Honestly, I've done that before.
Did you really?
I have done that before. We were playing, I think my son was 11 or 12 at the time, and we were playing a game, and something just got out of control. Like the other team was like screaming about something. There was a play, a fair foul ball. I was still the assigner at the time. And I literally walked out to the coaches or the umpires, and I was like, look, I'm going to make a little bit of a scene. You're going to restrict me to the bench. You're not going to eject me, but you're going to restrict me to the bench. You're going to overturn the call. I'm going to argue with you, and then you're going to restrict me to the bench, and it's going to be over with. So, like, they overturn the call. I start arguing with them, and then they change the call again back in it's like, it's just going back and forth. I'm like, you guys, just listen to what I'm telling you.
I'm trying to motivate you.
I have gone out and said, restrict me to the bench, just don't eject me, and let me make a scene, and it'll all will be right in the world, and we can go on about our way. So
they just couldn't follow the plan.
Couldn't follow the plan.
You want to hear about ejections, so I've coached for 30-some years, and I make sure it's 30-some because I don't want to say how much. But I've only been ejected twice, and once – I can't tell you what I said, but I never raised my voice at that one. I'll tell you, Miguel, one night when we were at practice, but the other time there was an icon in this area named Bernie Walters, who used to coach at Arundel High School, and he used to coach Mayo Legion around here. So when I coached third base, no matter what side I was on, I would never walk across the end diamond. I'd always walk around the umpire to go to my position. I thought that was respectful. So, of course, Bernie, the umpires are afraid of him. I don't care what this one next to me says. They were afraid of him because he has like 7 state champions. And this umpire was just cheating us on the corners bad. And I was getting a little bit chirpy here. And back then I wore glasses. So about the third inning, it's all it took. I decided that I got to make a little show right here because I'm very upset. And I walked straight across the end diamond. And as I'm walking across, I'm staring at the umpire the whole way. And then I take my glasses off and I said, "You truly need these." And I look at you. And I didn't raise my voice at all, but he was real quick with the "you're gone."
Wow.
And that
No
was
warning, no nothing.
no warning, nothing. That was like Beau just did. That was direct insult to him.
Yep.
I said, "You need these clearly, and you're gone."
I had an incident last year where I didn't get tossed. I thought I was going to get tossed. I was actually surprised I didn't. Where this umpire, and Miguel has seen this umpire. He's as respectfully as I can say, he's not a good umpire, and he probably should have retired 10 years ago, at least. Okay, I'm being honest. And I go out and it was a terrible call. Like, it was a terrible call. The other coach came to me because he would always come to me and he would tell him about he got the call wrong. I know that. So I'm out there, I'm arguing with him, and I don't usually raise my voice with an umpire. I raised my voice. I yelled. Everybody could hear what I was saying. Like, I went off. He didn't toss me, and as I was walking away, I said, "Everybody I can see whatever it was," and he didn't toss me. And I pushed a little bit more. After the inning was over, we were on the third base side, our opponent on the first base side. I decided to go on the other side of the field. Like, I didn't even go across the field. I'm coaching third base, so I go to the other side of the field and walk out past him on first base. I didn't say a word to him. I just walked past him on first base, and I thought, sure, he was probably going to toss me after that. But he didn't. He didn't say a word to me, and I didn't say a word to him. I guess if I did, he probably would have tossed me. But that was probably the closest I felt like I should have gotten tossed from a game. I've never been tossed from a game. Miguel, how about you? Have you ever been tossed from a game?
The date was June 24th. So all right, this was probably the weekend from hell. This was last summer. We were playing a tournament. It was the Baltimore Charm City tournament. So we had one game at DeMatha, and we actually had one game at University of Maryland College Park. So we had a game on a Friday, game on a Saturday. The game on Friday, we were up 6-0. We lost 7-6. It was embarrassing. So we were up at University of Maryland. Same score, 6-0. And I kind of started to see the wheels starting to fall off. So I was like, oh my goodness, what's going on? My guy had the bases loaded with 2 outs. It was a 3-2 pitch. He throws a curveball right over the plate. Calls it a ball. I have the video footage too to prove it. And I remember, because I always tell my guys, like, listen, I don't argue with umpires. For every bad call, it always comes back around in the other end. But I made the mistake of blurting out, "Come on!" And I think I threw something and kicked something. I might have kicked the player. I don't remember. And I remember staring down the umpire and him staring back. It was almost like he was daring me to do something. So I had to go get my pitcher because he wound up throwing 4 straight balls. He couldn't find the plate. As I'm walking out, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. He's just looking at me, and he takes his mask off, and I'm looking at his right hand. He has it on like it's a holster, like he's just ready to just shoot at any moment. And I just I stop and I stare, and he's like, "You want to go?" Like, I was like, you know what? My guys are already falling apart. We wound up losing that game 7-6 after having a 6-run lead.
Jeez.
And I remember
I slept that night.
I wanted to quit coaching. I wanted to figure out how to get everybody's money back. I was distraught. But I remember, we wound up laughing about it like as the season went, because there's at least it wasn't, University, at least it wasn't College Park. So we kind of made it into a joke, but at the moment, yeah, I thought I was gonna. I felt myself in a rage, which I normally never do as a coach. I felt like I was gonna. I felt like I was going to prison that day. That's how pissed I was. But yeah, yeah, yeah.
I get rage when I give take signs and people hit game winning doubles. Remember that when Gavin did that a couple years ago? We're in tie game, first and second with nobody out, 3-0 count. I'm like, take. And he swings through it, hits a double to win the game. And everybody's celebrating. I'm like screaming at the kid, what did I tell you to do? The coach, I won the game. I was like, I don't care.
That's a tough situation to be
That
in.
is a tough situation.
I'm
Yeah.
not a very good baseball player right now.
But you
That's
were
a tough-
supposed to say that wasn't a take sign. That was just a finger that I stuck out.
So,
I want to ask you guys this. The analytics. I'm sorry, I couldn't think of the word right. I had to look at
That's Coach Bob's favorite topic.
analytics in baseball. How do you feel about analytics being used in real-time coaching decisions?
Well,
And I think about analytics.
now you're gonna let me talk first?
I know he's going to defer to me. Now here's my problem with analytics in baseball, and I know this is going to be captured and sent all over the country.
I hope so.
Analytics is a sophisticated thing, but it's just numbers and number crunching and getting situations right. You just do the homework. But the problem is you got a bunch of dumb coaches that have no idea how to assess analytics properly. If you use them right, it's just statistics. It'll show you situations. But these coaches right now, they think analytics is the greatest thing since life. But you got to have a hunch. You got to trust your kid. You got to train your kid right. And they usually come through for you when you tell them that we're in a big spot right now and we need a hit and run or we need to hit behind the runner. Analytics, what's that do for you? It's a situation. So I'm not in favor of it. So when these major leaguers are paying $100,000 for guys with analytics,
I'm so glad that you said that because I remember when me and Justin coached at MSI, the first team that we ever coached was a 16U team, and we were in a tournament in Reading. We made it to the championship, and our pitcher, remember what was his name? We called him Pretty Boy or Pony Boy because he had perfectly blonde coiffed hair and a gold earring. He was dealing. Elias is what I'm thinking. And he was dealing. And it was 4-1 going into the bottom of bottom of the sixth. And I think there was a hit that it was a grounder to short, and then it just hit a pebble and just shot up like 90 feet in the air for a double. So analytics tells you, all right, if they go third time through the order, you got to take them out. So I had the bullpen warmed up. I'm like, even as I was going out, I'm like, I know what analytics says, but I got to see what he tells me when I get to the mound.
exactly.
As soon as I got to the mound, he said, Coach, I got this. And he looked at me with the fire in his eyes, and I looked around, and I think everybody was like, "Oh, he's done." I was like, "You know what? You got it. Then give it." Struck out the next 3 batters. We won the championship. Now, had I gone with the analytics and gone with the guy in the bullpen, you remember that big Okie guy that I think his name was Justin. His mom was a trainer by profession, so he always had he had ingrown nails. He said, I have a damaged aorta. Didn't know how to spell it. If I would have put him in, he would have damaged his arm where he couldn't even throw. He admitted, he's like, if you would have brought me in, I would have been toast. But analytics doesn't account for those things. You know what I mean? Analytics has been around for decades. Like Coach Bob was kind of alluding to. But again, you use it in certain spots, but you gotta go with your gut sometimes. Because I think, Casey Stengel was the first one to use the platoon as part of his coaching style. Lefty versus lefty, righty versus righty. Earl Weaver was the first one to really say, like, he's the one that really dug into the numbers. Like, well, how does he hit when the weather's hot or when the weather's cold? And he would make those changes, but he didn't, commit to it to the point where Blake Snell, Game 7 of the World Series, he pitches 6 innings, and I'm going to take him out because he's going through the third time in the order, which I'm still upset about. Who does that in the World Series? You know what I mean? And I think that's what's costing people games, and I think that's why the game's not as enjoyable as it once was.
Correct. I'll say too is I get both sides of it, because I get to coach with Bob, who's got 30 years of experience, and he's an eye test guy. He's I can coach based on what I see, and then I've got Coach Shin, who kind of runs our high school program, and he's very young. He's great. Everything that he does has a purpose. We'll talk about fielding ground balls later.
Correct.
But he's more of the analytics. We use Blash Motion sensors. We've used Rapsodo in the past. One of the good things we've done this year is videotaping, having our kids videotape themselves. So like they have the next guy up is videotaping their swing so they can go back and watch it. But Matt's very much into the number stuff. And one thing that we did this winter time with the high school guys is we spent the first month of just measuring exit velos or bat speed,
Yep.
and comparing what it was from the day we started to the end of the first month. And then Bob kind of took over, and we started doing more, working on mechanic stuff, and we'll remeasure them as they get ready to go outside. But, I get the old school approach from Bob. I get the new school approach from Matt, and, and it's a good way to try to, I always tell Bob, I'm bringing you into the 21st century kicking and screaming. So.
And I feel Bob and where he's coming from with that, because again, what's the term? Success leaves clues, and sometimes when a player has it and when a player doesn't, and you have to kind of coach based on that. You know what I mean? And video is not new. They've been using video, past 30, 40 years. So it's just a matter of, what you're seeing in the video and how it's translating, to the field. And I think, one question I could ask you guys is, why do you think it's so hard for some athletes to transition from their training in the lab to the field during games? And I'm asking that because from my experience, I always pick on this tournament that we had in New York where, we faced some really good teams. But again, we did the exact same trainings, the hitting off the tee, the balance drills, everything like that. But they couldn't pick up a pitcher that was tipping his pitches. They just weren't getting the sequence. Training doesn't do anything. That's the eye test. Like, the umpire came up to me in the middle of the fifth inning. Our team struck out 16 times in that one game. The sequence was fastball, curveball for 3 innings. The umpire came up to me, he's like, you do realize, like, every time he throws the curveball, he's like, yeah, he's tipping he taps his knee. And every single time they would take the first pitch, fastball over the plate, and swing and miss at the 2 curveballs. I'm like, what are we not doing? Why are we not adjusting? Why are we not taking what we did in the lab and put it on the field? So why is it sometimes that difficult transition of translating what we do in the lab? Why is it so difficult to translate it on the field?
I'm going to take this one too.
You take it first.
I think it has a lot to do with kids don't play when we were growing up, we played sandlot baseball.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in an area where we had an elementary school 3 blocks away, and every day after school, no matter if we were in middle school or high, not necessarily so much in high school, but when we were younger, we were playing sandlot pickup games for hours every single day. I mean, it's like the phone would ring and it would be like, Sandlot, go. And it would be a race to see who get there faster. Kids don't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. They're too busy on their phones or playing video games or they're taking swings in their backyard by themselves, or they're just not doing stuff to engage of thinking about how to play the game without being instructed on every single pitch anymore. It's very difficult because you're trying to get so much in, and so that's my feeling is they don't play enough games outside of coaches. I mean, I used to get parents would get lit up at me because I would start every fall practice. The first practice we would end playing wiffle ball for 45 minutes. And he's witnessed it. Parents walk up to me and go, "What are you doing? Like, there's so much to be done." I was like, these kids need to learn how to get to know each other.
Yep.
They need to build a bond and a friendship of just doing something that's not, okay, we're going to roll ground balls at you, or we're going to hit off a tee or do front toss or soft toss. And like, they just need to go out and just play and have fun.
Well, I'll touch on that because when we used to play the pickup, you would hit the ball and you would run. And when we're in the lab, they're taking swing after swing after swing, and it's robotic, and they're working on their mechanics. We're improving their foundation, but then pressure. And I always talk about pressure is self-induced. If you understand it's self-induced, then you can control it. But then you got the parents and you got the umpire, and then the umpire is not calling strikes and balls correctly, and now you're losing focus. Where we get down to, you see the ball, you hit the ball. If it's a strike, you hit it and you run. But I actually had a kid, we had a problem last year with kids would take 3 strikes without swinging. And I had a kid I asked one day, he was a very good player. He was a catcher and he had a great pop time. There were people looking at him. But I said, how come you keep striking out, taking 3 strikes? And he said, I'm afraid of failing. And I'm going, okay, now there's fear. But I said, if you don't swing, then you're not making any effort to fail. You've just hurt yourself. And that's what really bothers me. We talk about, we want game players. We don't want practice players. And you got to see the pitch and you got to hit it. And it means we talk about it a lot. I've had Beau and I've known him now for 4 years. Baseball, I don't want football guys and basketball guys and hockey guys getting on me. But baseball really is a game of life. You've got to be able to handle failure. You've got to be able to just drop your bat and your glove and transition from one to the other. You go from offense to defense and defense to offense. And that's life every day. So we really work hard on trying to build confidence to go out and execute, realizing that you're going to fail a lot more than you succeed.
Amen to that.
Yeah, and I was just telling one of the best things that Miguel says when he's coaching. I still repeat it. You're going to fail more than you succeed. What Coach just said. And if you succeed 30% of the time, you're in the Hall of Fame.
Exactly.
We talk about it all the time.
Coach Miguel says that, and I stick with that. I've held that. I keep that right in my pocket. I told him today.
But you know, the greatest thing about that, though, is that's hits. Now, we had a kid 3 years ago that had a batting average of 100. He was lower in the lineup, so all the studs were in front of him. And in 4 or 5 games, might have been more, he had 10 RBIs. Now, if you're living on batting average, you're failing. But if you're living in production, he was succeeding. Because there's other things you can do to help the team out.
Yep, absolutely.
And,
I care about more about on base percentage than average.
Yeah. Correct.
I want to see kids on base. If you're getting on base, there's a reason why you're in the lineup. Like, you can, again, obviously, Bob's really good at, he analyzes 10 games. After 10 games, you should know where you're at. You know where your season is going. So we kind of take it in 10 game spurts. That's one of the good things about Game Changer now is while the numbers aren't always correct, sometimes you might have, especially at high school at Southern, a lot of times, sometimes the kids are doing it, especially the JV kids. The varsity coaches, we kind of handle it on our own. But, I used to let the kids do it on the summer teams at 13 and 14-year-olds just so they got used to keeping score of something. So those numbers are kind of skewed, but they at least give you a foundation of where you're at. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Gentlemen, we gotta. I can talk to you guys the rest of the night. We had a whole bunch of stuff to talk about, but we're running short on time, and I don't know if you've ever checked the show out, but there's a part of the show at the end where Miguel basically stumps me, because like I'm terrible with jersey numbers for baseball.
Horrendous.
Like basketball, I'm good. Football, I'm okay, but for some reason, jersey numbers in baseball, I'm terrible.
But you're on a bit of a streak. Although last week, Coach Mitchell answered the question. He's like, "Oh, I know who this is."
But see, you had a trick clue in there.
Oh, the Triple Crown. So last week the answer was Pedro Martinez, who actually won the pitching Triple Crown. That's what ERA, strikeouts, and wins, I think, or I always forget what the third one is. And he was like Triple Crown, and he's a pitcher. So yeah, I kind of threw him off there.
I remember when I was a kid, and this was in the mid '90s when the Redskins. And I was never the greatest student in school. I didn't like doing schoolwork.
I'm shocked.
I wasn't the greatest. I knew very early I was never going to college or whatever. So like we were sitting at dinner one time, and my dad's looking at me like, who plays for the Redskins and what number? And I'm like, every number he gives me, I know every single Redskin past or present at that point I could go down the list. And Mom goes, why can't you do your schoolwork like that? I was like, because this is sports. This is fun.
Too, yeah.
Right.
I heard
y'all heard that. Yeah.
Yep.
Can't you do your schoolwork? Like, why don't you know your schoolwork like you know whatever?
Nope.
Because schoolwork sucks.
I'm paying for it today, though.
I think one of the first times I heard it, I think it was what's the TV show with Will Smith? Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. The theme song.
Mm-hmm.
And it came on. I think my dad was like, "Well, why can't you do your timetables as well as you could do that song?" Never said that song again in front of him. Never. So here's what it looks like, gentlemen. And if you know the answer, don't blurt it out yet. Oh Lord, and the 1992 World Series. So he gives the jersey numbers and he gives some accomplishments. And I got to figure out who. And I always ask for hints because I'm always lost. But let's see. We have Hall of Fame, 12-time All-Star, 92 World Series, 6-time Silver Slugger, 7-time Gold Glove. Number 31 played for the Padres.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously played for the Blue Jays.
Mm-hmm.
The World Series in 92. Looks like the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
Who else? Who am I missing?
The California Angels, the Twins of Minnesota, and the Cleveland currently Guardians, but at the time they were called a tribe that we can no longer say.
I feel like this one should be jumping out at me exponentially.
It's easy.
Uh-oh.
I only have one name. I only have one name in mind. I'm sure it's wrong.
I'm running through that 92 roster. And, I mean, see, I don't know. Ricky Henderson never played for the Padres.
Right?
Yes, he did. It's not Ricky Henderson, but he played. Because remember, Ricky Henderson played till he was 73, so it was one of the last two teams that he played for.
You're right. All right. So there was Ricky Henderson. There was John Olerud. There was Roberto Alomar. Well, I want to say, I almost want to say Roberto Alomar, but I don't feel like his number was 31.
Not even close.
I would say I don't think Roberto Alomar ever wore 31 for the Orioles.
Are we supposed to answer this or you?
Well. So we're
Okay.
Justin usually answers it until he gets to the point where he can't, and then that's where you guys come in.
That's what I was waiting for.
Okay.
Dave, is it Dave Henderson?
No, you were close.
Nope.
Dave, Dave Winfield.
Yep.
Dave Winfield.
Got it.
Yep. That's who it was.
Dave Winfield.
I think of the '92 World Series when Toronto's in. I always think of Joe Carter.
Yeah, jumping up and
First one, yeah, that's the first name that always comes to mind in that era.
but Dave Winfield got the game-winning double.
Mm-hmm. And he had a terrible swing.
Oh,
He's in the
horrible.
Hall of Fame.
Look at the picture of him in the batting stance.
That's half our guys in the cage last night.
He was
Cell phone hitters.
He was a masher. I mean, he's one of the first ones I saw that he took a line drive, and it would have been a home run if it cleared the wall. It was like a line drive to the wall.
Wow.
Man.
Now, Dave Winfield, correct me if I'm wrong, he was drafted into the major leagues, the NBA, and the NFL, correct?
Correct.
Yes. Out of the University of Minnesota, I believe.
That's correct.
And why is he never considered one of the greatest athletes of all time?
Because he played for Stein. Well, I don't know if Steinbrenner had anything to do with it, but he was the reason Steinbrenner was suspended from Major League Baseball for a couple years. So, you know how Steinbrenner was really involved with his team. He hired a private investigator to follow Dave Winfield around because he was trying to figure out why he wasn't living up to his contract or whatever. So, of course, that's illegal. So. And I think he was supposed to be the heir apparent to Reggie Jackson, the right-handed version of Reggie Jackson, because I think he signed in '81 to replace Reggie Jackson, and of course Steinbrenner said that was the worst decision he made of letting Reggie Jackson walk.
Just for the record, the last team I remember Ricky Henderson playing for was the Hershey Bears.
He's actually probably playing. Him and Julio Franco are probably playing somewhere in the Caribbean.
Still.
It might be. There it is. I was able to get it. I almost had to ask for help. I'm glad I did, and I feel good. I feel accomplished.
Whenever you hear Coach Bob said, "Oh, that's easy," then the game's over. Just for the record.
I have to get it now.
He said, "This is easy." I was like, "Oh, Justin's not going to get this one. He's not going to get this one."
To do it. But gentlemen, Coach Bob, appreciate the both of you for being on the show with us tonight, talking a little bit of baseball, talking some coaching, talking a little bit of life, having some fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And can you tell people how to get in touch with you or the Rawlings Prospects if they're interested in playing baseball?
That's all you.
That's you.
So the Rawlings Prospects is a organization. We're based out of Odenton. We have an indoor hitting facility. We have multiple fields in use. We have some really good coaches. We age range from 7 and 8 year olds to 17-year-olds. Every age group. I think we 14 to 15 teams this year. Pretty high level commitment. Our high school guys go a lot. We were just talking tonight about how many games can we play this summer with our freshman team. But you can go to rawlingsprospects.net, where we usually have tryouts starting in end of July. We're a full year-round commitment, so we do the fall schedule. A couple tournaments in the fall. We play games. We practice. The biggest thing about our program is we practice. We get a lot of those organizations now that just are show and play. They pull kids from all over the country. We were down in Florida with our freshmen this year, and we played a team that kids were from Oregon. They rolled up and were like, we've never met these kids before. They just have no idea. So we try to work within our area. We want our kids to get better. We have multiple high school coaches. We have college coaches on staff. We have a really good group of guys that all like to work together. We run our high school winter practices together and our fall and summer stuff as well. So we do a lot of things together where it's just not this team's doing their thing, that team's doing their thing. We try to do things as a group. Coach Shin, who coaches the summer team, he coaches at Crofton. In the high school, I coach at Southern. Bob coaches at DeMatha. And generally, we all run the same systems. So that way we, kids going from with us and they go to Coach Shin or Coach Miguel, we're all running the same thing. So that way they're not, we're all teaching the same stuff, which is good. So, and we try to get analytics in there and drive Bob crazy every once in a while. So, but rawlingsprospects.net. The bio that Miguel read in the beginning is probably a little outdated. I've been coaching there for 7 years. I've coached 4 or 5 years now with Bob, and I have another assistant who I miss seeing that, comes and works when his schedule allows. Coach Brad, he's a great dude. I coach high school at Southern with my best friend in life, and I enjoy it. We're baseball every day. I work for the Postal Service, so it's post office work, and I get to spend a little bit of time with my family. So my wife loves going on trips. We're going on another baseball trip. I'm taking my wife to Arizona at the end of February.
Oh, man.
And we're going to baseball games.
Love it.
Spring training games.
I love it.
Nice. Yeah, I would love to go to some spring training games.
I've never been.
Wherever, I would love to do it. I'm going to one. I definitely would.
Yeah, my loving and God love my wife. I've been married. Bob's much older than I am, but I've been married for 20 years, and my wife was, when I first got married, my wife was not a sports person at all. Not at all. If I tried to watch the Redskins game or an Orioles game, we're not watching that. Turn it off. And as my son started playing baseball at a very young age, and she's been slowly getting into it, and the last 5 or 6 years she loves it. I don't have a kid in the program anymore. My son is 18 and getting ready to graduate high school. My daughter's 20 and is in college, and so she comes and hangs out with us for every tournament we go to. She enjoys.
She has fun.
She has fun.
Yeah.
She keeps Bob in check.
She keeps making sure I have enough water.
Yeah.
And she makes sure nobody sits on your bucket.
That's right.
I told Bob, I said, we're not even going to have buckets this year. We're taking ball bags with us everywhere we go. So that way they can't sit on buckets. Bob's like, I'm going to bring my bucket.
Listen, rules are rules. Set the ground rules.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's one thing I've learned from Coach Lynch at Southern. We don't have buckets at Southern. There's no buckets at Southern High School. We use them. We keep them in the container when we need them for practices. But we don't want kids sitting down. Get up, stay involved. And over the last year or so, I've stopped sitting on buckets myself so much. You're old. You got to sit on the bucket.
Absolutely. That's how you got to call pitches.
Exactly. Where else you can't call a pitch unless you're sitting on the bucket. That's right. And I'm sticking to it.
Miguel, we're gonna give Bob wristbands this year, so he has to read the number off the sheet and relay the numbers. See how many games we can get in like that.
1, 5, 3.
Oh, yeah.
7, 4.
You're touching on the. I hear those guys scream those numbers, and I go, "What idiots!" Those kids are looking at him like, "What?"
Oh goodness!
Yeah, I've seen that. And me as a coach, I'm over there like, what could those numbers mean? Let me try to figure out. Let me try to break the code.
Dude, it's the most annoying thing ever.
Yeah,
It's the most annoying thing ever.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for being with us. We really appreciate you hanging out with us for this rendition out of the Check Swing podcast. And of course, this is our coaching series where we having conversations with coaches. And Coach Beau and Coach Bob, we appreciate y'all being with us. We're going to get up out of here. It's about that time, and we appreciate y'all for hanging with us. Come back next week when we're going to preview the Super Bowl because all right. With that being said, we appreciate you hanging out with us. We'll talk to y'all next week on the Check Swing podcast. Peace.
All right. Thank you.